So she was working, 13-hour shifts, 13-hour days, 14, sometimes 15-hour days,
Wow.
no overtime pay. Sometimes just getting paid by the bucket or by the barrel of what, of how much like fruit she was picking and stuff.
Yeah.
So my earliest memories are waking up like at 4 in the morning to get dropped off at a babysitter, and I wouldn't get picked up until later that day, like pretty late in the day, in the evening. And so I was missing my mom a lot, and I just see her get home like smelling like onions, being like super dirty, and she never complained. Like she just did the work. She provided for me. I have an older brother, an older sister, and a younger brother. So she provided for all of us by herself.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Untapped Potential Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Navan, and today we're going to be interviewing my co-host, Max Prado.
Here we are. This is my first time ever being interviewed. I just realized that. Like I've done your part. I've interviewed tons of people for the podcast, but I've never been interviewed. So
Now you're in the guest seat, so now you know how it feels, huh?
Man,
It's kind of weird.
It is weird. It is weird. I want to say like the stereotypical things people say. I'm like, thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Thank you for being here, bro. Damn.
Yeah.
No, man, I'm was really excited actually for this episode because, obviously you're one of the hosts and you started the Untapped Potential series. So, the one thing that a lot of people don't know is like kind of your background, your story, and I wanted it to come through for this episode, and so I think this is a great opportunity for us to just kind of dive into Max Prado and learn a little bit more about your history and where you come from, and really who you are, what you do.
Who is this guy? Who is this guy
Max
who just
Prado?
brings people in and asks them a bunch of questions?
Well, I want to start by saying, obviously, the way that we know each other is because we were in the same fraternity at WSU, Washington State University, and we were also roommates. For those of you who are new to the podcast, we actually used to live together. But I want to take a step back and really learn more about you before school.
Yeah.
And where you came from, where you grew up. And I just want to start there. So I think it all started in Othello, Washington, right?
It actually started in Mexico.
Mexico?
So I was born in Uruapan, Michoacan, Mexico.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
I didn't even know that.
You didn't know that? Man, I could've, yeah, so crazy. But so I was born in Uruapan, Michoacan, Mexico, 1995. So I'm 25 years old. My mom ended up kind of divorcing my dad and just left. Women in Mexico traditionally have been kind of there's like very
the caretakers of the home.
And I feel like even using the word caretakers of the home, it kind of like romanticizes it. I think women in Mexico, even in the U.S., like in Hispanic culture, are traditionally kind of like subordinates to their husband. Like once you get married, like you just kind of serve your husband. Like traditionally you don't really work outside the home even. And that's kind of the position my mom found herself in when she divorced my dad. She said, you know what, I don't even know what to do anymore here. Like a lot of places don't even hire like women. You're kind of outcasted in your family because if you're divorced. So she just said, you know what? Because I'm gonna leave.
Tell me a little bit more about your mom, though. Like, so she was in that situation. She left.
Yeah, and I like to start there because I think that story is like the cornerstone of who I am as a person. Because my mom left, ended up settling down in Othello, Washington, small town on the east side of the state. For those people who aren't from Washington, we say the east side, but it's not like the far east side of the state. The state is divided by the Cascade Mountains. And so everything on the east side of the Cascade Mountains is considered the east side. Everything on the west side is considered the west side. So my mom ended up settling down in Othello, Washington, small town, right in the middle of the state. And it's a big agriculture community. So she was working in the fields. She was like picking apples, cherries, onions, potatoes. If it wasn't directly in the fields, it was in the warehouses. So she was working, 13-hour shifts, 13-hour days, 14, sometimes 15-hour days.
Wow.
No overtime pay. Sometimes just getting paid by the bucket or by the barrel of what of how much like fruit she was picking and stuff.
Yeah.
So my earliest memories are waking up like at 4 in the morning to get dropped off at a babysitter, and I wouldn't get picked up until later that day, like pretty late in the day, in the evening. And so I was missing my mom a lot, and I just see her get home like smelling like onions, being like super dirty, and she never complained. Like she just did the work. She provided for me. I have an older brother, an older sister, and a younger brother. So she provided for all of us by herself.
Damn.
Working like, hard labor jobs.
And that's like not easy.
Minimum wage.
Right. Right. And so to take a step back though, to get to from Uruapan to Othello, Washington, I mean, that's a big move. Like, did she know anybody in Othello? How did she go from a small town in Mexico to up here and to another small town?
So she had like one family friend from our hometown in Mexico. So a lot of people were leaving Mexico at that time. Like there was a big thing to come to the U.S. Because there was a lot of jobs in agriculture. And so a lot of people were leaving Mexico. Mexico is just a country with very low opportunity at that time.
Right.
Still today too. I'm not like an expert on it, but there's a lot of violence and, like drug stuff going on out there.
Right.
So there's like the aspect of you want to get away from the violence and like having to watch like, over yourself because there's a war going on out there. And also just the fact that the government is pretty corrupt and there's not a lot about job opportunities, especially for a woman in her 30s. My mom was 33 when she had 32 when she had me, 33 when she ended up coming to the U.S. Wow, so she was pretty old. I mean, I'm 25. I can't imagine myself at 33 just packing up my bags and leaving to another country where I don't know the language to go work in the hot sun, Like if that's my alternative, like, what was my situation back home? How bad was my situation back home for me to want to leave to go do that?
Right. And just not knowing like what the outcome of all that effort is. Cause I mean, it's not easy literally picking up your life with 4 kids, moving a small town in Washington just for the opportunity. You don't even know what that is going to materialize later. And so that in and of itself is a big risk. Man.
And then you throw on the layer of we were undocumented when we first got here. So like we were always watching our back. Like there was ICE raids all the time. My mom would tell me stories that, ICE would come to like the stores on Sundays because they knew everybody was going to go buy their groceries on Sundays and just be standing there just to be an intimidating force in the community. Wow. To scare people because they knew that Othello was majority, it's an agriculture town. So it attracted a lot of, undocumented immigrants to come work there. And she would tell me stories that they would actually come to the fields to the workplace and people would hide in bins. People would hide under trees. Like it was crazy. Like
would she, I mean, I imagine she would have to hide.
Yeah, she was living there. Yeah. And I grew up, I was growing up undocumented. I didn't even realize what that meant.
It wasn't until later that you grew and you went to school and you're like, wow, man, like this is actually a big problem for people. You don't realize that until you get older. In the moment, you're just like, man, like, where's my mom? Like, where is she? She's working so late. Like, I don't get to see her. Yeah. So it's not until we mature and grow up. So tell me a little bit more about like, all right, so your mom went from Uruapan to Othello. She's working in the fields. As you grew up in Othello, I imagine like that's like you said, there's a huge community of Latinos over there, right? And so, how was like it growing up in Othello? Like, was it 95% Latino? Did you have like culture shock when you went to the West Side or to school outside of that?
I mean, starting in Othello, for me, it felt normal there because, so growing up, my family is like literally first generation, like what people would say, like straight off the boat. Like we just got here, my whole family. Like I was actually among the first wave of my family that came to the U.S. when I was like about 5 or 6. I came when I was 2. When I was about 5 or 6, another part of my family came and slowly more family members started coming. Yeah. So all of us, we just speak Spanish to this day, speak Spanish, I just speak Spanish with my family. I mean, my younger cousins that are my age and stuff, we speak English. We grew up here. We went to school here. Yeah. But everybody else, we speak Spanish, especially with the older people in our family. And so when I went to school, I didn't really know English that well. So I had to learn English like pretty much from scratch, or the little bit I knew was from TV. Oh. So like kindergarten and like a little bit of first grade, I was in ESL. Like they had us like listening to like little cassettes, like book, like somebody reading a book to you. And also like I was like in a slower reading class. It took me a little longer to learn how to read because I just didn't even know the language. I think if anything, what I felt like a little bit of confusion on when I was younger was being light skinned. Like I'm a white passing,
Oh, that's right.
you know, Mexican. So I mean, I'm a white Mexican. Like you look at me, you would think I'm white, and I am white, right?
Yeah.
But I just happen to be Mexican.
I want to touch a little bit more about that because I think with everything that's happened, especially in the last year, racial tensions it just been brought to a new level. And growing up, you know, I knew a lot. My mom is actually fair skinned like you, green eyes. A lot of people don't think she's Mexican either.
Yeah.
Did you find yourself being treated differently than other peers?
100%. Yeah, I think like I saw it through a unique perspective because I noticed, especially like white teachers or white people, you know, white adults, this is speaking from like a child's perspective, right? White adults would probably talk to me a little differently than like some Mexican kid who looks, you know, who's a little darker skinned or has black hair, you know, would definitely be like, oh, he's like, probably talk to him, like assume he doesn't really know English, but they would talk to me like I do. And I didn't.
Oh, I see.
Like I'm on the same boat as this kid next to me, but I'm like, you know, I don't know. Cause I used to have a bigger accent. Right now I have a little bit of an accent, but like, you know, if you saw a video of me talking when I was like 7, I was like, yeah, I don't know, like, you know, like I had a huge accent because I grew up my whole life speaking only Spanish. Right?
And you're surrounded by those people too that have like, you know, came from Mexico and have that accent too. And so,
And we all have that cadence. I think to this day, I speak like a little faster. Maybe like I say words a little differently. That's just because, you know, I speak 2 languages and I see it as a, you know, as a strength now. But to get to the root of your question, you know, yeah, I did feel like I was treated a little differently and by my peers too. Right. So like,
oh, wow.
You know, growing up, it was like, oh, he's a little weirdo. He's a little white boy. And like, I feel like in the Hispanic community, at least where I grew up, like it was kind of used kind of as like an insult or like something that taught me about. And I would kind of get mad about it a little bit. Kind of like, I felt like people were trying to make me feel less than. Yeah. But I feel like the root of it though is like, you know, the racial, what do you call it? You know, the racial turmoil that's going on around us, like it sinks into the kids, right? Like they see that and they almost feel like this anger against like lighter skinned people or white people, especially in the Mexicans of the US, because they feel like we were living in fear, right? Of like, we felt like the US government didn't want us here, but we had to be here in order to survive because we're fleeing like a war zone and lack of opportunity. And we wanted like a better life for ourselves. So I think seeing me, even though I was Mexican, but I was light skinned, they saw like the white man when they saw me. So they were kind of like, they wanted to taunt me. And I felt confused because I identified with them, but at the same time, I don't really look like them.
Yeah. So they almost, they wanted to make you feel less than because they almost felt like your skin gave you a pass to some sort of extent.
Yeah, because I look like the oppressor. Right. Yeah. So I feel like that this is just my speculation. I'm not like, definitely. I'm not an expert on like racial issues. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. You know, whatever. But I'm just speaking my truth, right? Like the way I'm interpreting my experience. But you know, I think it was interesting though. Growing up in Othello was cool. Had a lot of really good friends. You know, there was friends that got into bad things. There was friends that ended up doing good things. There was, you know, there was a lot of times when I was probably not hanging around with the best crowds. I probably wasn't doing the best things, but you know, I think that having my mom always, you know, the one stable force in my life has always been my mom. Just working hard, providing a good life for me and my siblings. And I think just seeing all the sacrifices that she made, it made me always want to stay on a good path and do well for myself so I can make my family proud.
Yeah, and on that note, like as you were growing up, was she encouraging you to look out past Othello and continue to grow and mature and say like, hey, like this town isn't the end all be all. Like I want you to have a life and a career and a job and a good education. Was she encouraging you to do that, or did you take it upon yourself, be like, man, like, you know, I don't want to be here in Othello. Like I want to go to the big city. I want to go to a big school. I want to do all the things that I see opportunity to do.
Honestly, I think I took it upon myself.
Really?
And it's not that my mom didn't want to do that. I think that she did support my dreams in an indirect way, but she never like directly said like, I want you to go to college. I want you to do this. My mom, I think her highest level of education was she finished middle school.
Oh, wow. So she didn't even finish high school.
And that's the same case for the majority. All the older people in my family.
Did she have children at a young, like your older brother and sister? Did she?
Yeah. She had my older sister when she was 17. She got married at 17.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people, down there, even especially back in the day, like they didn't value education as much as we do now.
Yeah.
And that was, once you're old enough to, have kids, like that's it, man. That's your life.
Yeah. Conversations about college never happened in my household.
Wow.
Like conversations about education. Like I'd show my mom my grades and she'd be like, "Oh, good job, mijo." But she didn't really understand what good grades were. She didn't really I guess she didn't really understand like the how much opportunity a good education can open for you, and I don't blame her for that because she just never had those opportunities in her life. Right. So I think to answer your question, I did take it upon myself a lot. And I think for me, I have a younger brother who's about 4 years younger than me. And for me, I always felt that pressure to be a good role model. So I wanted to open those doors and I wanted to be a good example. And it's funny because I remember, I think it was like in second grade, one of my teachers told my mom during a conference, she said, "Your son's a leader." Wow. Like your son
at second grade.
In second grade, she's like, "Your son is gonna be a leader in life." Like,
wow.
And it's crazy because my mom still tells me this story. She said like during class, like every time he gets something done, he stands up and he walks around his table. He wants to make sure everybody at the table is good before he turns his stuff in. Like he wants to help everybody around him and not just himself. And the teacher said, that's really rare for like somebody that age to be like displaying those characteristics. So it's really impressive to see your son doing that.
And that's surprising that she said that too, because I would imagine a lot of other students who came from your background, who went to, from a small town in Mexico to a small town in Washington, like they would also want to be good role models. But that didn't seem to be the case if she's saying that it's abnormal for somebody, especially at a young age, to do that. So you're leading the way. And I wanted to kind of tee this up to the next question, is what, I guess it makes sense that you want to be a role model, right, to your younger brother, but what led you to education being that catalyst for you to really elevate not only like your family, but also like as the path forward that you needed to take in order to achieve what you wanted to achieve?
I think just in my community, in Othello, I think the biggest like role models to me were my teachers, other than like my mom,
Okay.
Because like there just wasn't like a lot of, I mean, if you're in a small town, for those people who don't know how big Othello is, it's about population's like less than 8,000 and it's grown a lot. Like when I was growing up, it was like 5,000. So it's a super small town where like the people that I had access to, I'm sure there was a lot of smart people in Othello, a lot of successful people. But as a young immigrant kid, the successful people I had access to were my teachers. And so seeing them and talking to them and them seeing potential in me, they would always tell me, "You're really smart. You're really good at this. You're really good at this. You need to go to college. You need to go to college." I'd always hear that. And I just kept hearing that. And I said, you know what? I'm just going to do well in what I do. And that's kind of also like just a natural thing in me. Everything I do, I go 100% because if I'm not 100% into something, why am I doing it? That's my mentality. Right. So when it was school, I was going 100% on school. I wanted to get all the A's. I wanted to get all the pluses. I wanted to get the best grades. And sometimes I didn't even know why.
Really?
It's just because I was doing it. I wanted to be the best at it.
And it's like a competitive thing too, almost to some extent, right? Like you want to be the best in terms of sports, and in this case, education. And so it kind of motivates you.
Yeah. And what's crazy is for me, it's not competition with others. It's competition with myself.
Right.
It's I want to do well because I want to see myself succeed and my family. Right. And so that's the biggest thing. And I think another thing that kind of like builds on me being a leader is not having a father figure back at home. So I felt like I kind of had to fill that role for my family.
Got it.
A lot of the time growing up. And I think that, that's kind of like a trauma thing, right? But I think that sometimes trauma, in my case, can build leaders, right? Because when you put somebody in a very adverse circumstance, they can either sink or swim. And I think in that circumstance, I decided to swim, right? I had no choice. Yeah. And so I had to step up as a leader in my household. And that's why I think I was able to translate those leadership skills in the school and then other areas of my life. Yeah.
And especially too, considering the fact that you were saying your mom was working so late, I imagine oftentimes like you'd be at home by yourself and be like, you know, I'm the only, like, I'm the oldest man. I'm the oldest boy in this house, and I got to be the man of the house. And so you took it upon yourself to take that role on.
100%.
And so going from, you know, like what kind of translated your success or your objective to, I guess, elevate your livelihood or your career path. Like, was there a teacher who you saw as a mentor that said, hey, you need to go to WSU? Or like, what led you to WSU to be that opportunity for you to continue your growth?
Yeah, I think for me, it was in high school, I knew I could go to college. I was like, I'll probably go to a community college. I don't think I could afford a university or, you know, anything like that. And it's funny because I used to want to go into psychology.
Yeah.
And I took an AP psychology class in high school. And my teacher, Mr. Barber, shout out to Mr. Barber, he noticed that I was getting straight A's on all of the exams because I was reading that book. It was like a big college book, and I was reading every chapter because I love psychology. I really wanted to learn about it. So I was getting good grades because I knew the material because I read it. So I would fall asleep in class, though. Oh. Because I was working full time. I was like 16 years old, working full time. Not full time, but like I was working a lot of hours at Burger King.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And that was to get money home, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because like, I mean, I didn't necessarily have to help like pay bills. I mean, I would help, but like it was to buy stuff for me because I didn't want to ask my mom for money anymore. Yeah.
I mean, she's supporting your younger brother and the whole house too.
Yeah. I wanted to have a car. I wanted to have gas money. I wanted to have nice clothes. And so I was like, well, I got to, I got to have nice clothes money. And there's only one way to do it, right? You got to go work. Mm-hmm. And so I got a job and I was working. And I was showing up to school because I was working late hours. So sometimes I'd be working until 1 a.m., get home by 2, take a shower, fall asleep by 3, wake up at like 6:30 and go to school. Yeah. So I'd be really tired. I'd be falling asleep in class. And my teacher would, he pulled me aside one day and he said, hey, Max, like, I noticed like you fall asleep in class but you have really good grades. Like you're really smart. You understand the material. He said, what's going on at home? And I just told him, hey, honestly, like I work full time. And last night I worked until 1 a.m. and I'm really tired. I was like, but I don't want you to think like, I was kind of scared. I was like, I don't want you to think like
you're slacking.
I'm disrespecting you or like I'm slacking. Like I really like this class. Like this is the one class I love to come to school for because this is my passion. I love psychology. Yeah. And so then he said, I explained the whole situation and he got personal with me. He told me like he was in a similar situation, single mom. He was working a lot. And so he knows kind of how that goes. He told me like he got deep, told me about a little bit about his like life story. And I related to him a lot. And then he told me, there's resources like what's your plan for college? There's resources for you. You're a really smart kid. Like we need to get you the resources to get you out there because you need them. And like you're going to succeed if you get those resources.
And were you like, had you already considered college already at that point, or was that something that like I might do, I might not?
Exactly like that. It was like in the back of my mind, like I knew I could make it into college, but it was the money thing, man. It's always been the money thing because single mom, four kids, and making minimum wage. How is that going to pay for a university education? Right. Yeah. And I didn't know about financial aid or anything like that, so. Wow, man. Yeah, so once I learned about financial aid, student loans, everything, I said, oh, I can actually do this. All I have to do is have good grades and, get in. I had the grades to get in to WSU, so I was like, let's just go. Let's go for it. It was between WSU and UW. I ended up choosing WSU. I didn't even apply to UW because I didn't want to move to a city right away.
Oh, I see. You wanted that, like, small-town community feel.
Yeah, because I knew college was going to be a big, like, that's going to be a big change for me. Nobody in my family had really done it before, so I was like, I need to do one new thing first at a time, right? I don't want to do the city and the school and the expensiveness of the city and the more expensive school. Right. So I was like, I like WSU. There's a good education. And that's when I decided to go into business too, because I was going to go in psychology, but I realized, did some research that in psychology, there's not really a whole lot of money to be made unless you get like a graduate degree and like you get kind of specialized, and it's a lot of time. You have to continue
the education. That's the biggest piece, right?
And for me, like, given my family's circumstances, like I wanted to make money in 4 years. Right. Like I wanted to be, able to at least help a little bit, at least, provide a foundation for myself so I can help in a more near future than with psychology. Yeah. So that's why I decided to go into business.
Dude, shout out Mr. Barber, man. Like
For real. People like that, man, make a big impact.
Oh, for sure. Even if it's just asking that one question
Yeah.
of like, hey man, what's going on?
Yeah.
Like that really led to a lot of things that ended
Yeah.
up leading you down this path.
Yeah. And he's just one of the people, right? Not just Mr. Barber.
Right.
Like there's Miss Sorg. She was my, you know, like my homeroom teacher in high school. She really liked me. She always like would ask me questions that got me thinking about stuff.
Yeah.
You know, Mr. Tate in middle school. There's a lot of people that I remember. And like I said, it was a lot of the time it was my teachers, because as someone who comes from, you know, like my background, you don't really have access. Like you don't have that uncle who started a business. You don't have that cousin's friend who runs, you know, this school district or something. You don't really have those connections in your family. So
yeah, you don't have anybody that says, oh yeah, man, you just need to do this, this, and this. Oh yeah, and like you can sign up for this scholarship and like get this finance. Like you don't have any of that.
Yeah.
Like you got to figure that shit out yourself.
Yeah, and that's not to say I didn't learn anything from my family members, because even though like pretty much nobody in my family went to school, I learned a lot from them about work ethic and respect and things like that, you know, which made me like, I would say like a good person. But I didn't have those resources in order to kind of break out of like what I was used to seeing growing up.
Yeah.
You know?
And I mean, it's not to say like, you know, they couldn't have given you that, but it's like they also lack that experience too, right?
Yeah,
and so they can't teach you anything that they don't know themselves, right?
Yeah.
And so you take it upon yourself to make that decision to learn and grow and exceed where, you know, you came from.
Yep.
So I want to lead into WSU. So you went to WSU, had a goal of being in business. What was your degree? What did you pursue? I guess we'll talk a little bit about how we met there too. But
yeah. So I ended up going into business administration, finance. You know, I think the reason why I chose business is because in high school I had a pretty good group of friends, and we were always kind of just messing around with stuff. We had a YouTube channel. We do like funny videos. We wanted to like monetize them. We started selling shirts. We started like a clothing brand. It was called Culture Lifestyle.
Wow,
we were like
man.
printing shirts. People were buying them like crazy. We just weren't really like that organized, so it didn't really take off. But I mean, people were supporting it. And then also like I was a rapper too in high school. That was like my way of expressing myself and having fun and kind of staying out of trouble. So yeah, I had music and stuff, and like I was selling mixtapes in high school. Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So like in the hallway, like your stereotypical dude, like I had the backpack on. This is like 2012, 2013. Like I had the backpack on, and I remember one day, I think I was advertising it on Facebook. I was like, I'm going to go to, or maybe even MySpace might've been retired, maybe Twitter. And I said, you know, I'm going to be at the Breezeway, which is Othello High School. You know what the Breezeway is. That's like where everybody hangs out after school. I was like, I'm gonna be at the Breezeway. I had like a few friends who were always like by my side, supporting me, helping me, you know, sell the mixtapes and stuff. I was like, you know, look for this guy or me. And yeah, I remember we showed up with like 100 mixtapes, and I swear, like, I think we left that day with only like less than 20 mixtapes left. So we sold like 80 in one day at $3 a piece, but people were giving $5, $10. So like, I don't know, do the math, man. But as someone who was just like recording these songs in his closet, mixing them himself, like a lot of the time, like these are my songs that like I wrote and like pretty much like did a lot of the editing for. There was a time when I had like somebody else help with mastering and stuff, but yeah, I think we made like a few $100s like in a few minutes.
And that type of support
off
really,
of my music. Yeah.
I mean, that's like really encouraging for somebody who took a risk on their own idea, right?
Yeah,
like
100%.
Just getting all that support, like, damn, like, dude, we almost sold out of all these mixtapes. Like, it makes you want to continue to do that. And so that carried into college, right? A little bit. So tell me more about that.
So in college, like I was still rapping a little bit. I actually did sell mixtapes.
Oh, you did it in college too?
Yeah, I ended up joining a fraternity, right? Omega Delta Phi. And one of the things we had to do for the fraternity in our pledge process was do a little dummy fundraiser, right? Let's see how these guys fundraise. And my class, 6 guys of us, Chi class, we decided like, let's sell this guy's mixtapes. So I created a compilation tape, like songs I had made over the years, and I just made a new cover, and like, yeah, it was like super easy. We all kind of got together and we made them. Like we cut a piece of paper out and glued it, like
burned it onto a CD.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so then we sold, I think we sold about 50 at WSU.
Wow.
Yeah.
Man.
People who did it, that was different though, because this was literally us going up to people and pitching my CDs.
Oh, gotcha. So they didn't know you.
No, they didn't know me. This in Othello High School, it was easier because it was people who knew me. I was announcing it the day before. People showed up with their money. This was me going up to people at the campus mall and at the Cub, saying, "Hey, check out my mixtape." And this was at the time when people were like flaming people for doing that. They were like, "Oh, this is that check out my mixtape guy." I was like, "I don't care, man." And I guess that just helped me own my story. It's like, this is me. This is what I do. Like, you can make memes about it, you can make jokes about it, but like, I'm really doing it. You're just a person making jokes, you know? Right. And at the end of the day, like, we sold out pretty much. Yeah.
Damn, man. All right. Wow.
So it was cool.
So you kept on doing your thing, and eventually you graduated with your degree in business, and moved to the big city.
I did. Yeah. Yeah. So I graduated in May of 2018. So I've been out here ever since, working, finance.
And I want to just briefly talk about what you've done since then, because I think it's really important just after we've talked about where you came from.
Yeah.
And to where you're at now. So you graduated from college, got a big job with a big aerospace company in the Seattle area. And since getting that job, you've started this podcast, right? Yeah. You continue to venture out and do different things. Most notably, like, being a part of my brand, which I appreciate you for, bro.
100%.
And modeling for that. And then also, like, you've done, you have your own condo now. Like, you really, like, elevated that type of experience for yourself just through all the hard work from day one, man, of your mom taking you from Uruapan to Washington. So I think the one thing I wanted to really kind of hone in on there is the fact that if you put your mind to it, man, like, you can do whatever you want to. You just have to be willing to grow and take the risk and do uncomfortable things.
100%, man. And thank you for highlighting that, because it's for sure been a journey. And
because I mean, it's not easy going from Othello to even WSU, man. It's like, that's also a growth stage.
Yeah, 100%.
It's like that, taking that challenge of risk, like going and like taking the risk of higher education and everything that comes with it financially, not knowing if you're going to graduate or not, even if you try your hardest, like that growth really needs to come from yourself. And so anybody who's wanting to start something and pursue their passions, and it doesn't have to be college. It can be starting your own business. It could be, moving from Othello to somewhere else, man. Like, you can do everything that you want to, as long as you put effort and work hard for it, and grow and be ready to be uncomfortable, because it's never easy when it comes to those types of challenges. So
100%. And it's like we said, it's been a journey, and I do want to touch on one thing too. Because it sounds so easy to say, just put your mind to it, grind, hustle, and you're going to make it. I want to also emphasize the importance of finding a balance.
Right.
Because I think that I reached moments of burnout, especially in college. I thought I was at an all-time high in college because I was getting all these accolades. I was the president of the fraternity. I was about to leave for a job with Boeing. I was, I was getting like 4.0s basically. I was, I graduated with honors. I was, I was wearing like a suit all the time because I was so involved with so many organizations. And I was like, I felt like the guy,
Yeah.
But at the same time, I was burnt out.
Yeah.
So even though I was at an all-time high externally, internally, I was almost like at an all-time low. Because emotionally, I was burnt out. I wasn't very happy because I wasn't getting a lot of sleep. I was drinking a lot, especially in college. I was, I wasn't taking care of my mental health. And, this is kind of a vulnerable thing to talk about, but I think it's important to touch on this because a lot of the time you see these successful people and you just see like the shell of them. You just see the highlights of their life. And I don't want people to think that my life has been like this super perfect story of this guy coming from the bottom and like making it out and just it working out because I just, put the pedal to the metal and was on 100 all the time. I did do that. And I realized that's really not the most healthy thing. So one thing that I've been working on the past, year, almost 2 years is just mental health, taking a step back, realizing what things I need to cut out of my life, what things I need to increase in my life. And, going to therapy, going to counseling, which is a very stigmatized thing, especially for someone who's a Latino male, a Mexican male, especially in that culture, right? It's frowned upon.
Yeah. I mean, we were just talking about that too. Like when growing up in Mexican households, if you go to therapy, people think you're crazy.
Yeah. They think you're weak, right? Like, especially if you're a male, if you're a man, right?
Yeah.
You're a weak dude. You don't know how to handle yourself. Like just handle it, right? Just deal with it.
Yeah.
That's not the way to do it. That's not the way to do it. And I'll be the first one to tell you all that. So, yeah, that's one thing I wanted to touch on because I think it's really important to take care of yourself because it's only going to make you that much more powerful, right? It's only going to add more to your toolkit, and it's going to allow you to stay consistent longer because you can hit the pedal to the metal for a year, maybe 2 years, maybe 3 years. But that fourth, fifth year, there's going to be a lot of things that are going to start falling apart in your life.
Yeah. I mean, you can't do it all, right? Like we were just talking to Jen Bumpus, our guest on the previous episode, where, I mean, you have to find that balance. And therapy is one big tool for you to really, because when you think about it, and I did the analogy of the car, right? Like if you never change your oil in your car, at some point it's going to break. Yeah. And you have to do that maintenance.
That's a good analogy, though.
Not only on your car, but on yourself. Like I mean, even if you work out, like what are you doing mentally to work out and like improve there? And so, I mean, you bring up a good point, man. Because I mean, especially now, after this pandemic, everybody's stressed. Everybody has been going through something, and so understanding the importance of mental health, and knowing that there's an answer out there, man. Like you just have to be willing to look for it and go through the exercises. So bring up a good point, man. I wanted to quickly go back on a lighthearted note, go back to the rap career that you had.
Yeah, man, I was a whole rapper.
So when we first met, I mentioned that we met at WSU. At the time I was in my last year, I was in grad school when he was in there. And one of the things that really intrigued me about him as an individual is the fact that he did things differently than anybody else that I knew. And so one of those things was obviously being a rapper. And I just wanted to go through, if we flip over, so here's Max. You can find him on Instagram, Maximiliano P. But this has nothing about your raps, bro.
Yeah, so it's not my brand anymore,
but here's, I mean, dude, you actually came out with some good content back in the day.
Hey, thank you. Shout out to my homie Tony who filmed this video right here, Fly.
So this is one of your songs that you put out when you were at WSU. I think you filmed this at WSU, right?
Yeah, this one was actually filmed in Othello.
Oh,
this specific video, yeah.
Gotcha. But this was during when you were going
when
to
I was at WSU. Yeah, this was winter break. This is how I spent my winter break.
And how old were you on this?
I believe I was 20 years old on this one.
20 years old, man, trying to make
about 5 years ago,
make shit happen, dude. This, and I was pointing this out because this, like the music video aspect, it was done really well, man. And so, like, you were putting out good content. This thing almost has 10,000 views, 7.8.
Yeah, man. That's one thing. Like, I gotta give it to the people who support me, man. Like, it's crazy how many people support me. Like, for everybody who's watching this, y'all are probably have been part of my journey since way back then. I just want to give y'all a huge thank you because it's crazy how, like,
and this is still going, numbers,
bro. Right?
Yeah.
Like, people have really been supporting since day one. Like, whether it's a podcast I'm doing, music, whatever I push, people support it, and I'm really thankful for that.
That's awesome, bro. Do you still get DMs from people being like, "Hey, man, when are you gonna put out a next album?"
I used to get a lot, over the last few years. I think it's kind of died down. I think people have seen like that I'm kind of rebranding to like more podcasting. I'm not really trying to do music anymore.
Yeah.
So people have kind of realized that and they're respecting it. But yeah, I used to get that all the time, and I used to think about it a lot, but. I think for me it's crazy, but a lot of my inspiration for my raps was being in Othello. Like, I didn't really have a lot to do, and it just, I don't know, I wasn't as busy.
Yeah.
So I had a lot of space for creativity, and that's where a lot of my creativity came from. Once I went to college, I took on a lot of responsibility. I mentioned being burnt out.
Right.
It's hard to be creative when you're burnt out. because you're just so stressed out. And so I think that's when like my creativity started to go down in college. And now like I work a job, you know how that goes.
Yeah, man.
It's
like you
tough.
grow out of it.
You can't go to your 9 to 5 and then start writing raps at 6, you know, like, I mean you could, but it's just not what I want to do. No, yeah, 100%, because that's not something I could do. So if you do that, props to you, you know, but
yeah, no, it's not for everybody, man. And you realize that early on, but I just wanted to give you a shout out too. This one came out about a year earlier, right?
Yeah, this one I was about 19 years old. I think, oh no, I was 18.
You were 18 years old when this came out.
I was 18 in this video.
Damn, man.
Sir.
So good quality too. I mean, check it out, man. Max, this actually has the most views of any video that you have, 8.2K.
Yeah, 8.2K. That's crazy.
Man, you got to monetize this, bro.
Yeah, I think Tony does have it monetized. I hope he does. Yeah, because man, he put in work. Shout out to Tony. He's been one of my really good friends who's always believed in me. So
yeah, hey, shout out
that's
to Tony,
important,
man.
you know.
Hey, man,
to have people who believe in you.
For real. Yeah, man. I just wanted to end it on there, man. Hey, thank you for coming through, and thank you for being a part of this podcast, man. I know it's uncomfortable being in the guest seat.
Hey, it's exciting. Honestly,
exciting
now
too.
I know how it feels. Like when people are here for future episodes, I know how y'all feel. Like it's cool. It's cool. I like it.
All right, man.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And we're the Untapped Potential Podcast. You can check out Max in the description below, and stay tuned for next episodes. Please subscribe to our channel, like the video, and we'll come out with more every Monday. Thank you.